the reason why people are so mad about certain things, like the bump stock, for example. Matter of fact, I don't know anybody that ever had a bump stock.
Can you explain what that is? Because I've heard it. I know what it is. I also don't know anybody who ever owned one.
Right. So bump stock was they replaced the back of this where it moves. So when you pull the trigger, the recoil the gun would move, and it would essentially take your trigger finger and bump your gun and make it fire super fast, like a full auto, right?
Got it. So it's a workaround to where semi-automatic, one trigger pull, one round. A bump stock would effectively allow you to pull the trigger so fast that it was right. Closer to an automatic weapon.
Correct, but it's still one round per trigger press, right?
Got it.
So nobody I knew ever owned a bump stock. Matter of fact,
neither.
I've never even seen one, right? But when they banned it, we were all up in arms, and this is why. Not because I care about bump stocks. Matter of fact, I don't really care that they're banned or not. It was because when you start letting the other side win, right? And this is very black and white. I know there's not, one side to next, but if you let the other side win any victory, it's a snowball effect.
Right.
Okay. And that's what essentially frightens gun owners, right? So if I go, hey, you know what? Even if I think your idea is great, even if I'm like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense, I can't trust the other side to keep up their end of the bargain, because if they don't, there's not a goddamn thing I can do about it.
Right.
And this is why the two sides are so fierce the way they are. That's why we're like, you know what, this can't happen. Matter of fact, I don't care about this. I much prefer to have a stock, to be frank, right?
Right.
It just looks cooler. Looking cool is half the battle, right?
Right.
So this, like in my mind personally, I don't really care. I was planning to SBR it anyway. But it just frustrates me because if you give them an inch, they're going to try to take the mile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the argument in California for the longest time was, hey, all we've got to do is get rid of high capacity magazines. If you can only have a magazine that holds 10 rounds, that will be enough, like on this AR platform. If you can't load this with a 30 round or 100 round magazine and go shoot up a mall, that saves the problem, because by the time you could reload, somebody could shoot you back, or whatever the rationale was. It was like, all we've got to do is get the magazine capacity from 30 down to 10. The second that passed the law, they're like, well, maybe we should only have 5-round magazines, or maybe we should outlaw this altogether. Oh, the only thing we have to do is put this little button on here called a bullet button, where you can't quick release the magazine. You got to have a pen or a little utility tool to release the magazine and take that out, because that makes it less tactical and less warlike. Okay, all right, fine, whatever. Put the bullet button on. Oh, that wasn't the end of it. As soon as the bullet button was on, it was like, well, now you've got to break down the whole weapon to unload the magazine. Right. It just never ends. I mean, that's what progressivism means. They have to keep progressing towards whatever they think the utopian outcome is. So I understand your hesitancy to give an inch, because we have ample proof that they always want to take the mile. Always, every single time, especially when it comes to gun regulation. So I get that. I'm trying to find some happy medium where maybe we can more closely regulate the gun owner and not necessarily the gun, because all of that is just, it's just a circle jerk.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, and people don't look at. So I like to give people this example, right? Look at Mexico, our neighbor to the south, right? It's a freaking wild, wild west down there, and that's because people don't have any other choice, right?
Explain what you mean.
For example, if I lived in a world where I cannot protect myself, the person, whether it be the government, whether it be, a drug kingpin, whether it be some homeless guy with a weapon, they control the narrative. A great example is 9/11. When those guys took the plane with razor blades, there was not a goddamn thing anybody could do about it. I mean, people tried, right? But they had a weapon. Didn't have to be a gun, but they had a weapon.
Yeah.
Right? So at the end of the day, this doesn't matter. Right, but they keep trying to change this to make it seem like they're doing something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just what frustrates the gun community. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. And what's crazy is I have talked to a lot of people that have done special forces work in Central and South America, and they're like, yeah, guns are illegal, but I can tell you where to get one within being in the country for 48 48 hours, maybe 72 hours. I'll have to source something. But the idea that like you can't buy a gun in Mexico is like, no, you can't buy a gun legally in Mexico. You can buy a gun in Mexico. And the problem is because it is harder for people to legally obtain firearms, guess who the only people that have them? The government, which is the sole repository of violence, and then the cartel, which is just paying off the government so that they can commit their violence, which doesn't seem like a good plan.